Right now, things are anything but smooth between Max Verstappen and Red Bull Racing. What once seemed like an indestructible partnership is now showing signs of strain, and the cracks are starting to become too visible to ignore. Behind the heavily guarded walls of Red Bull's Milton Keynes headquarters, a storm is brewing, and at the very center of that storm stands Max. The three-time world champion, soon to be aiming for a fourth crown, is reportedly simmering with frustration over the direction the team has taken with the 2025 car, the RB21. Insiders familiar with the situation claim that a high-level emergency meeting was convened in absolute secrecy. And it wasn't your average damage control session. According to those close to the camp, Max's management team came in swinging, holding absolutely nothing back, especially when it came to Red Bull's long-standing advisor, Helmut Marko. The atmosphere inside the team has shifted. The sense of unity that once characterized Red Bull's inner circle seems to be unraveling, and the once unshakable Verstappen-Marko-Horner triangle is no longer the fortress it used to be. This confrontation, by all accounts fiery and unfiltered, may very well be the first serious fracture in the dam that's held the Max Red Bull empire together for years. So, the question has to be asked, did Red Bull just pull the trigger on its own downfall? Have they, perhaps unknowingly, set into motion a chain of events that could eventually tear apart one of the most dominant alliances in modern Formula One history? If there's one thing the Bahrain Grand Prix made painfully obvious, it's that Max isn't happy. Not even close. The man who normally owns Saturdays with surgical precision could barely drag his RB21 into 7th on the starting grid. And no, it wasn't traffic. There wasn't a mysterious lockup, nor a freak mistake. It was raw pace, or rather, a shocking lack of it. Come Sunday, things didn't improve much. He managed to cross the line in P6, but that was largely thanks to a perfectly timed safety car that threw him a lifeline. Had it not been for that twist of fate, Verstappen could have easily found himself swallowed by the midfield pack, far from his natural habitat at the front of the grid. Throughout the weekend, Max struggled. He was locked in an endless battle with an RB21 that seemed to fight him every step of the way. Inconsistent braking, a lack of rear-end stability, unpredictable balance, and poor traction plagued his every lap. The engineers made a few desperate tweaks before lights out, but those changes barely moved the needle. Nothing seemed to stick. The trust between driver and car, a bond essential for championship-level performance, was broken. The RB21 felt like a foreign object beneath him. It refused to respond the way he needed it to. It was erratic, uncooperative, and frankly, miserable to drive. Tire wear was savage. Max had to pit among the earliest in the field, switching to hard compounds far too soon. But instead of stabilizing, the situation deteriorated further. He began losing ground, quickly and painfully, to rivals like Lewis Hamilton and even Andrea Kimi Antonelli, who's just starting to sink his teeth into F1. It was an ugly, frustrating, and sobering weekend for the reigning world champion. And the worst part? It might just be the beginning. When Kimi Antonelli's voice came crackling over the team radio, there was no mistaking the panic buried beneath his disbelief. "I can't stop the car. I've got no braking power." That singular moment encapsulated the chaos of his Bahrain weekend, a weekend plagued by failure, confusion, and a car that seemed determined to sabotage its own pilot. But Antonelli's struggles were merely a subplot in a much larger, far more unsettling drama that unfolded under the desert floodlights. At one point during the race, Max Verstappen, yes, the Max Verstappen, reigning world champion and the very cornerstone of Red Bull's modern dynasty, was languishing dead last in 20th place. He wasn't just out of position. He was drowning at the very back of the grid, isolated and in desperate need of divine intervention. And then it came, not through clever strategy or inspired driving, but thanks to a conveniently timed safety car that threw him a lifeline. That miracle didn't come from Red Bull. It came from fate. And it may be the only reason the team avoided complete humiliation. But even with that second chance, the warning signs are now screaming in neon. Red Bull knows they're dancing on a razor's edge. Verstappen's patience, though legendary in its intensity, is not infinite. And what happened in Bahrain was not just disappointing. It was unacceptable. It was a weekend that reeked of dysfunction and disarray. The kind of weekend that makes even the most loyal champions start asking dangerous questions. After the race, Verstappen didn't mince his words. He wasn't interested in sugarcoating the truth or wrapping his fury in PR-friendly packaging. His post-race remarks were a barrage of bitter honesty. Everything that could go wrong did, he said. The launch was crap. The pace just wasn't there. The tires overheated, again. The balance was all over the place. The first pit stop? The lights failed. After that, I got stuck in traffic. The hard tires had zero grip. I was sliding around like I was on ice. Then we stopped again, and that stop was even worse. I was dead last. And yet, somehow, miraculously, he clawed his way back to P6. Honestly, he said in closing, there was nothing else I could have done. But under the surface of that calm, diplomatic final line, something far more dangerous lurked. Doubt, rage, and a creeping sense that something fundamental is breaking. The paddock is buzzing with the same uncomfortable question. Is Max Verstappen on his way out? Has the once unbreakable bond between Red Bull and their golden boy begun to splinter? Is this the start of an ugly, slow-motion divorce that everyone swore would never happen, or that some saw coming all along? The rumors are no longer whispers. They're cannon blasts. The lid has been torn off the box, and what's inside is not going back in. The timing couldn't be worse. The sport is on the cusp of a seismic transformation. The new technical regulations are looming large, promising to reset the playing field for every team and every driver. But as F1 peers into its future, Verstappen finds himself haunted by the past, specifically by the stark contrast between the 2024 and 2025 editions of the Bahrain Grand Prix. A year ago, Max was untouchable. He crossed the finish line with a 22-second lead, delivering a clinic in dominance that solidified Red Bull's stranglehold on the sport. He wasn't just racing, he was crushing spirits. But fast forward to 2025, and the picture is unrecognizable. Instead of extending a lead, he was trailing the race leader by 34 seconds. And without the intervention of a perfectly timed safety car, that gap could have ballooned into something even more humiliating. What was once a fortress now looks more like a crumbling facade. And that reality has not gone unnoticed by those closest to Max. According to Sky Sports' Ted Kravitz, things got ugly after the race. Raymond Vermeulen, Verstappen's longtime manager and fiercely loyal representative, reportedly had a scathing confrontation with Helmut Marko inside the Red Bull garage. It wasn't just a heated exchange. Vermeulen was said to be absolutely furious, so much so that he stormed out of the garage, visibly seething. This wasn't an isolated tantrum. It was a symptom of something deeper. A sickness that's begun to spread through the Red Bull organization. The unity that once defined this juggernaut of a team is no longer there. Now, there are factions, splinters within the leadership. On one side, you have Max and Marko, bonded by years of loyalty and mutual ambition. On the other, Christian Horner and his new cohort, spearheaded by the team's next-gen technical leaders, including the man expected to succeed Adrian Newey. This is no small disagreement. It's a civil war in the making. The fallout has already triggered major alarms within the team. A high-stakes summit has been hastily scheduled ahead of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix in Jeddah. The key players? Marko, Horner, and Oliver Mintzlaff, Red Bull's global motorsports CEO. And although the meeting is officially about fine-tuning performance in Jeddah, a track that suits the RB21's high-speed cornering strengths, make no mistake, this isn't about car setup. It's about damage control. It's about whether this empire can even hold itself together as it teeters on the edge of one of the most unstable transitions in recent memory. Ironically, this collapse may have begun years ago with a single departure. When Dan Fallows, one of Red Bull's most brilliant aerodynamic minds, left for Aston Martin, it was seen as a simple transfer. But it wasn't. It was the first domino. Then came Rob Marshall. And now, even Adrian Newey, the architect of Red Bull's golden era, is rumored to be stepping away, if not in fact, then certainly in spirit. Each of those exits has hollowed out a piece of Red Bull's core identity. And while those men have struggled to replicate their past magic elsewhere, their absence has left a gaping vacuum within Red Bull's technical soul. What we're witnessing now isn't just a dip in performance. It's an identity crisis. So here we are, on the edge of something massive. Red Bull isn't just fighting to regain pace. They're fighting to survive their own internal implosion. Max Verstappen, the man who brought them unimaginable glory, may soon be the catalyst for their greatest reckoning. If Bahrain was the opening act, the main event could be far more explosive. And the real tragedy? Everyone saw it coming. Let's not forget, this is the same man who architected their dramatic leap forward in 2023. Much of that success was driven by car concepts that were, quite frankly, lifted straight from the Red Bull playbook. But what's becoming painfully evident with every race that ticks by in 2025 is that the current leadership under WA and Enrico Balbo simply isn't commanding the confidence of the garage. And now, with each unsolved mystery surrounding the RB21, Red Bull finds itself staring into the void, searching for answers that just won't come. The situation in Bahrain was emblematic of the chaos. Even deep into the race weekend, Red Bull's engineers were still wrestling to decode the behavior of their own car. It was déjà vu of the worst kind, the kind Mercedes fans know all too well. Remember the black and silver era when they chased shadows with porpoising simulations, endless meetings, and still wound up nowhere? That's the same purgatory Red Bull seems to have stumbled into. And no matter how great Max Verstappen is, and let's be honest, he is otherworldly, you can't expect him to conjure miracles every Sunday like he did at Suzuka or Interlagos back in 2024. It's just not sustainable. That's precisely what Helmut Marko hinted at when he fired a warning shot to the Red Bull camp. If major upgrades aren't delivered with speed and precision, the problem won't just be the RB21. It'll be losing Max Verstappen. And if Red Bull can no longer supply a championship-worthy machine, then the decision for Max becomes shockingly straightforward. He walks. And here's the twist of fate, the irony too rich to ignore. The team best positioned to scoop him up? It might not be Mercedes. It could very well be Aston Martin. Sure, Mercedes is always lurking in the shadows with their massive infrastructure and intriguing 2026 engine project. But Aston Martin offers something a bit more tempting. Fernando Alonso, now 45 years old, is inching ever closer to the twilight of his F1 journey. The seat next to Lance Stroll may be available sooner than we think. And Sky Sports' Martin Brundle just tossed another log on the fire after Bahrain. He made it crystal clear, if Max hits the market, Mercedes would be fools not to pounce. Toto already missed out on Max once, Brundle said bluntly. I don't think he'll make that mistake again. Yes, George Russell is holding the line. And yes, young Kimi Antonelli is being groomed as the future of Brackley. But let's face it, if Verstappen becomes available, no team worth its salt will sit idly by. Meanwhile, Max himself hasn't shied away from expressing how bleak things feel. After Bahrain, when asked if McLaren was his biggest rival for the title, his response was chilling in its honesty. They're not even my competition right now. I'm just here, participating in the championship. Ouch. He went on to reveal that he had warned Red Bull during winter testing. He told them McLaren was about half a second ahead, and guess what? He was spot on. Now that his prediction has painfully materialized, the disillusionment on his face is unmistakable. He admitted it plainly. Unless the other teams fumble, like McLaren's Q3 mistake at Suzuka, Red Bull doesn't stand a chance. Overtaking was impossible there, Max said. But that won't be the case every weekend. Most of the time, we just don't have the car. And buried beneath all this visible frustration is a nuclear-level threat no one's talking about loudly. but everyone knows exists. The exit clause. Yes, Max Verstappen has one. No, it's not a rumor. It's written into the fabric of his contract, and if Red Bull continues spiraling, on track, in management, in vision, there's every reason to believe he'll trigger it. So the real question isn't just, can Red Bull fix the RB21? It's, can they fix this entire mess before Max Verstappen decides he's done? And if they can't, who pulls the plug first? Him or the team? Both Max and Helmut Marko have spoken openly about the clause, refusing to sugarcoat the consequences. They've said it clearly. If the car fails to meet specific performance markers, then Verstappen's future becomes a massive, pulsating question mark hanging over the entire Red Bull operation. And now, as the team enters what may be the most fragile and defining chapter in its history, the storm clouds are gathering. The truth is impossible to ignore. Red Bull is navigating through a hurricane of internal pressure and external expectations. Even calling up Yuki Tsunoda, who scored points in only his second appearance with the team, hasn't been enough to stem the bleeding. It's done little to resolve the deep, festering technical issues that plague the RB21. The team is clearly struggling. Worse yet, they've already dipped deeply into their 2026 development budget just to remain relevant in 2025. And despite that massive gamble, they're still chasing performance ghosts while clinging to the fragile hope that a major upgrade package due in Spain might turn the tide. But that, too, feels like a long shot. Red Bull isn't the second-best team on the grid right now. Hell, they might not even be third. McLaren is stretching its legs, pulling away with quiet confidence, and while Red Bull still has the max factor, they no longer have the solid foundation they once did. There's pressure. There's talent. But there's no consistency. So where does that leave them? In limbo. All the key players inside the Red Bull camp are staring down the barrel of uncertainty. The tension is suffocating. Rival teams are circling like sharks, sensing blood in the water. And they won't stop circling until they've convinced Max that Red Bull is no longer his home. And to be brutally honest, right now, it's getting harder and harder to argue otherwise. From on-track performance to internal politics, the ship feels rudderless. So here's the real question for you. Is Max Verstappen genuinely preparing to walk away from Red Bull? And if he does, where does he land? Aston Martin, with a soon-to-retire Alonso and a seat potentially opening up next to Lance Stroll? Or Mercedes, with their deep war chest and one eye already fixed on 2026? Let us know what you think in the comments. And once you've shared your thoughts, make sure to click on the video that just popped up on your screen. It breaks down the Verstappen clause in detail and what it means for the F1 power balance going forward.